This is a no spark situation. Sort of like the last one I did. Do a compression test. I'm gonna get my timing light, pick it up. Well, we don't have any fire. See what we got for compression. I think see that one's, you know, over 170 pounds pressure. Alright, no fire. Alright. That one is 170 as well. So yeah, real good compression. Yeah, so this is a no fire. So we just have to figure out why we don't have fire. I'm gonna have to take this off to get to the coil to see if I'm getting voltage to the coil. We have a bad trigger or switch box or... Okay, we got under the flywheel, you got the cops. Look out. I got my setup where I'm grinding out the coils. I got my timing light here. Of course, I have no light, so I have no spark. Working backwards. We do have the right wires connected to the coils. Number one green, green and white is going to number two. The customer already replaced the coils, so I haven't checked them, but working backwards, you know, obviously this is your ground. We need to make sure this ground and that ground are the same. Okay, so let's start with our grounds. Alright, we must tool. It's a cool little meter. So, continuity check. Okay. It's going to go to the ground of the box. We got ground on that one. We got ground on the second coil, so we know we got ground there. I got my two leads on the trigger. Okay, and so for this trigger, there's only two wires, two cylinder. Okay, if it was more another cylinder, you'd have another wire. You know, if you have four, you'd have four wires. See what kind of voltage we have there, because it's going to be AC. We're on AC. Okay, about 5 volts. Take the plugs out. I didn't realize the plugs went out. You take your plugs out. It'll help to turning it over, so we need to take those out. On our must tool, we want to go ground. I know this is ground. I check my grounds. Check from here to here, that's a ground. There's no fuel going in it, by the way. So next, I'm going to take those spark plugs out. I'm going to put some WD-40 in there. One thing to remember to do, that when you take that back shroud off, you got two ground wires. Okay, one's here, the other one's over there. Okay, and you got those. You need to put the screw back in it just so it gets a ground. Otherwise, you'll have no spark. So now this is going to be AC voltage. I got it on 750. Okay, and I'm just checking the one side of the trigger. Alright, so the hot side of the trigger. Showing me about 5 volts. The DC voltage. So we're a little low on that. battery, but I have been cranking it. So probably need to put charger on the battery. So for one thing about this is you want your battery to stay up, because a weak battery will cause your starter to go out. It's pretty robust, but you send that weak voltage over there and then all of a sudden you got a starter problem. So good tip. See, now I'm at 12.46 volts. But whenever I crank it, I just want to know if I see that voltage go up. Then I know that rectifier's working. You see it go up, so that's for sure knowing that that's working. The way to check that is to go ahead and disconnect these. I could do an ohm test, and I could also do a continuity test. Okay, we're going to go back to our regular meter leads, not the DVA meter. I got my two yellows that are disconnected from my stator, and we got continuity selected, so there's no resistance and continuity, so that's good. Alright, so I've tested the stator now, so now these can just go back on. And this gray wire right now is just a tack. That's where your tack would come from. Alright, so now we go look up and see what voltages and resistance we should get from the trigger. Okay, so to back up a little bit, if we've got an ignition problem, no spark, really have to test everything in the ignition system. So under the flywheel, you got the stator, and you think of it as providing power for everything. Okay, so you got two yellow wires that go over to our rectifier. Okay, we got those two yellow wires that go into our rectifier, and then if you look at this cable, there's two more wires, a red and blue. Okay, and what that's doing is powering up through this bus bar. I got red disconnected right now. Okay, and it was, yeah, they're building another subdivision. That's cool. I got that on camera. That's pretty funny. We got our blue wire. Okay, and that's coming from, from our stator, and that's powering up this box, our switch box. Okay, and then there's a brown wire, and that, if goes to ground, turns the switch box off. Okay, then we have our trigger, which is telling the switch box when to fire. Okay, and it's coming this way, so we only have two wires on this motor. Some of them you'll have 3 or 4, depending on how many cylinders you got. And so test your trigger, make sure you're getting the right voltages. Like I had on a trigger, I had almost a 1K resistance. Alright, and then I was across the leads, we're getting 5 volts. I did find this wire, which would be our hot wire, to power up the switch box. It's completely frayed, so probably needs a new switch box. I'm going to see if I can make a repair and get it to fire, but I would recommend a new switch box, because I know that's probably not good. Looks like they also made a repair from the trigger side on this hot line. It's right here. Okay, and so we don't know if that repair is good. I take a screwdriver, just pop these up or pop these off, and then take my switch box off. I'm gonna put it on the bench, see what it looks like. Okay, this is from the CDI. This is a company that makes switch boxes and stuff. Anyway, this is our troubleshooting guide, and so it gives you some ideas on voltages and resistance. So if you look, it gives you some indication for no spark on any cylinder. So if we look down here, check the stator, trigger, and DVI output. Okay, and so white wire, if we look, it says wire read 2. So if you see blue and red, it's coming from the trigger. And so we should have around 5,200 ohms. So we got around 7K, and that's pretty good for us. We've got looks like from red to blue around 185 to 205 ohms. Then we got red to engine ground, 180 to 300 ohms. Brown to wider brown, which is ground to the 2 wires that come out of the trigger, and it should be around 1K. And then brown or wider brown, the other side of it should be around like 140 ohms, and it's showing us like, I don't know, 0.5 voltage. So it give you a good idea where to start and look and make sure that your trigger and your stator are in spec, and so you should be able to find that online. So in this case, we ended up purchasing another switch box. We're going to put that in and see if we get fire from here. So the book shows some different numbers. I don't have a book for this Mercury engine in particular. I have one for just about every other one, but not this one. So that's the best, closest numbers that I could get. But generally, they are pretty close to the same numbers. There's some numbers that are a little different on some of the other motors, but this is about what it should be. So, we can go from there. All right, so thanks for watching.
I used to hear 'em talking in the store.